Good morning, labrīt, President kungs, Ministrs kundze, dāmas un kungi, Mr. President, Madam Minister, ladies and gentlemen, CIREN members, welcome to the historic first Nordic Resilience Summit, taking place at the summit of the National Library in Latvia. The first thing I would like to start with is actually one that people normally finish with at the summits. I would like to start with thank you. Thank you to the loved ones, to the people who are supporting us today. The loved ones are those people who actually tolerate us as volunteers, who contribute to these initiatives like this. The loved ones are those people who actually support you in being here today as entrepreneurs, as academics, as political leaders, as experts. So thank you to all those people who made this whole thing happen. It illustrates how it is all the more relevant for the whole society to be part of the resilience effort, of the preparedness effort. And this is one of the overarching topics that we will be covering during the whole course of today, taking place between 9 o'clock to 12:15 in the live stream. And then we will have another panel later today. It is a master class that will be taking place on the 8th floor at the National Library for all those guests who are present. So I also would like to thank all the organizations that also contributed to this event with their resources, namely the National Library of Latvia, our host today. Maybe we can give them a warm applause for that. Delphi, and TV3 across the Baltics. Yeah. And many others who I just for the time constraints I'm not mentioning. So we will start today with a keynote speech from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Baiba Braža, and then we will follow with 3 panels. First, on leadership and whole of society approach to resilience, then followed by the economy panel, and then we will finish off with a synergies panel, which will look into very different and diverse aspects of resilience and preparedness. And I will tell the details about those panels as we go along during the day. So meanwhile, stay tuned. Enjoy the day at your screens or today at the summit of the National Library. And now I would like to welcome a fellow National Guard and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Baiba Braža. With applause, please. Thank you.
Labrīt, good morning, everybody. It's been an early night or late evening, depends how you put it, with the somewhat difficult situation over the Polish territories that we were monitoring very carefully. But the good news is that indeed the concept of layered air defense and NATO's national joint response worked, and those drones flying into Polish airspace were disabled and taken down. So in that respect, I think there is a good situation to be reported, but NATO North Atlantic Council will meet at 10 o'clock Brussels time, and then we will know a little bit more on the assessment and the situation. But speaking on resilience, it's somewhat a sort of fashionable theme or word, and in all the meetings and in all the summits and various conferences, You will have resilience discussed in various various angles, whether that's resilience or mindset, action, concepts, structures, and so on and so forth. But actually, when we look at the concept of resilience, it of course is in the context of NATO, very much a sort of joint action, even though it is a national responsibility in also NATO's understanding. But still, there is a collective element in terms of ensuring those 7 baselines that NATO set, baseline requirements, because we all, at the end, are in it together, and we support each other, and we learn from each other, and we stand from each other in NATO. And for NATO, the big prompt, of course, was the 2014 Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea, and the sneaking aggression in eastern parts of Ukraine. And that was not an accident, as we see today. It was followed in 22 by full-scale aggression. But at 2014, very much also the Baltic states, Poland, we prompted that work, seeing that preparedness and readiness, which has been a concept in NATO also, of course, in the Cold War times and also nationally, but still there was a new angle, a new level to it all. So what we did at NATO was to define resilience, and that is defined as a society's ability to prepare for, resist, respond, and recover from major shocks and disruptions, such as natural disasters, failures of critical infrastructure, or hybrid and armed attacks. So it involves a whole spectrum, both the preparedness but also ability to recover. And there are those baseline requirements that NATO has set, and that focuses on continuity of government, energy supplies, ability to manage uncontrolled movement of people, ensuring food and water resources, ensuring continuity of civil communication and transport systems, as well as mass casualties, and disruptive health crisis. So it's an interlinked type of requirement that allies are expected to handle. And each then decides what is the best way, how they proceed with that. And having sort of been partially involved in that, also in Latvia, we have quite comprehensively changed that readiness and preparedness system, really integrating that within the defense plans, exercising at various levels, assigning to local governments specific responsibility for preparedness in their municipalities and territories, and also exercising there, but also working much more comprehensively among the public, private, media, and other sectors. Also at NATO, when I was there as Assistant Secretary General, we actually established a specific committee, Resilience Committee, to make sure that senior officials from member states, but also within NATO, that there is a sort of conscious line of work to coordinate and prepare. And in the strategic concept of NATO, which is the main strategic document, there is a significant part devoted to that. At the Washington Summit, another big milestone took place. That was 24, and that was a commitment to strengthen national resilience by integrating civilian planning into national and collective defense planning in peace, crisis, and conflict. So again, very clear sort of ability to support armed forces at a time of crisis, preparedness, that there is no separate civilian and military lines of command, but it's all integrated. So that indeed is also where we as Latvia are going. That's why when Jānis mentions the National Guard, that is part of a wider, yes, it's people who work in mostly civilian work during the day, but train with armed forces over the weekends. They are part of the armed force. State Defense Service, which is a conscription, young armed Jaunsargi, which is, what is in English Jaunsargi? New guards, I don't know, whatever. Youth National Guards, which is in the schools, where kids basically learn some basics, and whether that's on military medicine or other preparedness. And essentially, it's about mindset and ability really to get those skills that are needed. Then, indeed, for Latvia, we have changed the legislation to ensure that we have this whole-of-government approach, that we have whole-of-society approach, and that we are able to implement those requirements set by NATO. It's not easy because, again, it requires a change not only of mind, but also change of set lines of work, how people and how structures have worked before. But it's certainly within the government, time and time again, whether it's a response to specific crises, such as it was the disruption of a cable in the Baltic Sea this January, where the comprehensive response both by military and civilians, coordination with our Nordic allies was very fast because we had to ensure that within 24 hours not only ship was identified, the guilty ship, but also national action had been taken. And I can say that because of all the preparedness matters that was taken before, the clients didn't even notice that there was a disruption and the cable was cut. So the data flow, nothing was interrupted. But in the same time, remember there was another cable being cut, which was one of the biggest and most important vital cables in preparation for Baltic disconnection from the Russian electricity networks. And if both those big cables would have been cut, ensuring that electricity supply is disrupted, it would have been much more difficult for the Baltic states to implement that major 2 decades long preparatory plan for the disconnection from Russian infrastructure. So there is certainly a situation which can be military, which most of the times is not military, but which requires response that is both exercised before, quick communications, quick connections, and decisive response. Not necessarily by political leadership. So that is another sort of essential thing that has changed. That very often decentralized mission command type of decision-making responding to the situations on the ground, in the sea, in the air, has to be taken. I think that will be something that where I can conclude now. How do we go on? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you for your keynote remarks. And we are very happy now to actually to contextualize these a little bit. Because one of our partners for this event, Norstat, they have prepared hard data on where do we stand in the North Europe in general, and I will ask for the presentation to be put up so that it starts running. Yes, all right, a little bit back. So Norstat has looked into this, and pardon if I have a slip of a tongue here, because these type of data is not what I do present every day, but I will do my best because I'm very excited about about the granularity that they have done in looking specifically at the aspect of defense, safety, how we feel about safety, and how do we feel about preparedness. But also, not only that, at the end of the presentation, we will look into very interesting statistics. So not only how we feel, but what we actually do about preparedness. And these are totally different things. Now, let's look into this. First, about the methodology that is very sound, and they have been using this methodology across the region for a while already. And we will share this in due course over the conference. But first, that I mentioned, perception of safety in the region, where if we look at the Nordics, and this is all all that the conference is all about. Of course, the higher up north you go, the safer you feel. Yes, and then we go to the south. South of Europe, of course, is the other extreme. Italy and France perceive safety at the lowest levels, and we at the Baltics. We see that Estonia perceives safety at the higher ranges than Lithuania, and then followed by Latvia. So quite an interesting circle that we can draw, starting from the Nordics into the Western, down to Central Europe and the Baltics, and then the lowest ranges in the south. Next thing is, of course, Norstat also looked at the government, the perception of the government and its capability to make decisions in this tense political climate. And here we see that again the perceptions are highest in Norway, Switzerland, and Denmark. While France and Italy again record lower levels of confidence. And Estonia, then followed by Lithuania and Latvia, are somewhere in the middle of these ranges. The next thing that Norstat looked at in its research is about trust. How we trust, where do we stand in terms of trust that the government will make the right decisions in the current political climate. One slide back. And here again, we see a pattern with the Nordics standing higher. Still on the lower ranges, you see that the trust is hovering only at around 25% in the Nordics, and then going lower down in the central Baltic, in the Baltic region, Central Europe, Western Europe selection of countries. Then we see the next thing that relates to defense and safety is that here in the Baltics and in the Nordics, we are more likely to support additional tax on defense compared to other regions. So we trust there is value in this. So it's worth putting our money into this area. And happy to see these data from Norstat, and that gives also the context for the next panels when we discuss them, these aspects. If you look at the handling of security and defense issues that was mentioned earlier today by the minister, we see that again the confidence in the Nordic region is highest in Sweden and Finland in the way that these issues are being handled at the EU-wide level. While in the Baltics we can say we are quite balanced in this area, but at lower confidence levels. And again, this time, interestingly, Italy and Ireland rank lowest in the trust of handling these matters. Here in an interesting turn of a different so it's a difference in data. We see quite higher ranks when we speak about reliance on China and USA for imported goods and technology. So we are quite uniform in Europe in believing that we should be more self-sufficient, more self-reliant when it comes to outside powers in supplying technology and important goods. When we speak about artificial intelligence in terms of spreading misinformation and disinformation, an important element in the panel 3 that we will have, where we have very prominent media experts and prominent cultural sector experts discussing this matter, and looking at the critical thinking. I think it's very important to notice that, again, Ireland and Norway and Poland are most concerned about the spread of misinformation through AI. Whereas if you look at the Baltic region, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, we are somewhat less concerned. And of course, I have a particular interest in this third panel, you know, where we arrive at our conclusions. And Dagnia will lead. Dagnia now sitting in front of the room here. She has a very important job, basically, looking at how critical thinking can be enhanced and how we can basically tackle the AI-related issues. Now, I promised something, promised a stark look at reality. And Norstat has done a great job by actually surveying the people this year in Latvia only, but I hope that next year, with the summit growing bigger, we will look at also at other regions across Scandinavia and across the Baltics, and trying to establish whether we are actually doing anything about our resilience and preparedness, meaning whether we are drafting plans, whether we are auditing our procedures, whether we are stress testing our procedures that we are strategizing about here. So, and here is unfortunately a very gloomy picture. So we as opinion leaders here, businesses, political leaders, we are good at doing summits, we are good at strategizing. When we go out on the street, we are unprepared. So only roughly 20% of the population surveyed that they report having taken part in one of the crisis exercises or civil protection exercises in the past 12 months. So this is an eye-opening picture, unfortunately, because we didn't have the level of granularity here to say whether these were simple evacuation drills or they were already more complex exercises to be ready for a crisis, you know, a preparedness exercise or a complex simulation and so on. So we don't have that granularity yet. Something to look at next year. So fingers crossed for Norstat. We hope you are doing well over the next year. You can invest some resources into that matter, because we know that you need to, you know, that is a resource that needs to be invested in, and we also keep fingers crossed that other companies, not least those who are present here today, from the critical infrastructure, that they also have some investment in crisis preparedness and in resilience, because the data we see still are at the very low levels and require require more to be done. Not to finish on a gloomy note. Here's more just to illustrate a little bit more of granularity of low preparedness, but still at the low levels, as I mentioned. But not to finish on a gloomy note and have some hope here that we can share during the summit. I have to say that overall people are positive about the future across our region. Still probably could be more positive, but although we are unprepared, still positive. Yes, and I hope that this positive attitude will somehow spur some practical action. And I know that some of the panelists in the second panel, they will have something to share. I see companies here who have taken practical action, whose employees are doing things, and I look at other companies and I know that they will take practical action, and they are already they have booked their calendars for practical activity already in the coming months, so that next year when we look at the data, when we do comparisons, we can say yes, not only we are optimistic about the future or concerned about what the government is doing or the EU is doing, we take responsibility over ourselves. It's just like we do here, our volunteers do here, our families who prepared this event, we take action so that we can take practical takeaways out of this room and go back and do our homework. So on this positive note, I would like to invite the first panel to the front, led by Meelis Kitsing, who is the rector of the Estonian Business School, a co-founder of CIREN. So thank you, Meelis, for your early trust in this idea. And I also will welcome other respected panelists here, including Linda Ezera of Norstat, Jānis Karlsbergs of Stratcom and Lato, Baiba Kaškina, Jānis Kažociņš, and remotely we will have Robert Ezel from Washington State joining in the panel. So welcome in. I think we can give our panelists a very warm applause. Meelis, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jānis. It's a pleasure to be here in this very beautiful morning. I am Meelis Kitsing. I'm rector of Estonian Business School. Estonian Business School is all about community for growth and responsibility, and I think it ties very nicely into the theme of our panel this morning, where we are going to talk about the whole society approach to resilience. So what can governments, businesses, communities do about it? As we saw from the slides, we're not actually that well prepared. So we have small minorities that are actively engaged, but many are not. And I have a wonderful panel here. I have Jānis Karlsbergs, who's a former Undersecretary of State at Ministry of Defense, a security expert. I have Jānis Kāzins, who is a former national security advisor to the President of Latvia, Baiba Kaškina, who is a CEO of CERT.lv, important player in a cybersecurity and cybersecurity expert. And online I have Robert Eesele, who is a Director of Emergency Management at the Washington State Military Department in the United States, and Linda Ezera, CEO of Norstat, who can also explore a little bit more about the data that we were presented this morning. So I would like to start with this first question that is addressed to all panelists. That what do you think that what can we do more to build this whole society approach to resilience, what can businesses, what can governments, what can civil society organizations, different communities do about it. So maybe I'll start with you, Yanis, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Madison. It's a great honor to be on this panel and in this context. In the 3 minutes which you've allowed us, I would like to give a little bit of context to what we're talking about. And though we're talking about resilience in the first instance, I think it is important for us to take it in the context of the war which is happening on Europe's doorstep. And the reality is that the majority of our populations, certainly in the Baltic states, Finland and Poland, feel that the same thing could happen to us. That is, a kinetic attack by Russia. And it is well known that generals always like to fight the last war, only do it better. Well, we'll see about that. The second point I want to make is that Ukraine has shown us that warfare has changed fundamentally. Over the last months, we have seen that a heavy metal is no longer the battle-winning factor, and that's why the Russians are finding it so very, very difficult to move forward. And we are moving into a completely different way of waging war, which is with autonomous platforms, air, ground, sea, underwater. These will in future be controlled by AI, and the Ukrainians have already shown that they can retake territory without using human beings, which is an absolute first. And that brings me to my third point, and that is that I do not personally believe that Russia, with this leadership in the Kremlin, and probably with the leadership which will follow, even if it is thinking along the same lines, is prepared or would risk a real kinetic confrontation. That is a war with NATO. That means that we're probably looking at something quite different, and that is where resilience comes in, and why it is so very, very important that this conference is kicking off and that we start to take this seriously. And when we talk about resilience, it's not just against cyber attacks or the odd undersea cable being cut. Now, I'm talking about much more serious things which could be unattributable, but sometimes are attributable. I mean assassinations. Vadim Krasov was exchanged back to Russia after he had shot a Chechen dissident in broad daylight in the center of Berlin. We have seen sabotage take place in European Union countries. It's these sort of things, in addition to the ideas that have been called hybrid in the past, that we need to be thinking and talking about, and that is a very tall order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Paiva, and maybe you can also offer your comments on this sort of more general question that what can we do about it as a whole society concerning resilience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Well, my domain, the cyberspace, has been under attack already since 2022. For us, this hybrid activity, hybrid war, if you will, has started already, and we've been, I think, doing very well, because society hasn't felt any major downtimes, any major lack of services. So in general, in cyberspace, we've been working already a lot through the last 3-4 years to ensure resilience of our resources. And this is something that we have to continue. Also, cyberspace is a domain where we always have stressed that it is a common responsibility. that it's not someone from outside who will protect you. It's each and every one of us, our organizations, our homes in the cyber world. And one of the very good examples that we do have, for example, is the DNS firewall that we have in Latvia. In a way, it's a centralized defense mechanism for everyone who is using internet in Latvia, but at the same time, everyone can contribute to this mechanism by reporting fraudulent sites, malware sites, also other kind of malicious activity that they see in the cyberspace, so that everyone else is protected. So this is a common protection mechanism for the cyberspace. For general resilience of our critical infrastructures, of course, it takes more than just DNS firewall. We have to plan for electricity reserves in case of failure. We have to plan on other resources, on remote data centers in case of more serious situations. And the legislation is there. Now we have to implement it. So I think in cyberspace, we have a lot of preparations already in place. But as you said, even the previous, as Jānis described in the statistics, people believe in one thing, but what they actually do is something else. So I think there is also this gap that, yes, we know we have to have exercises, we have to have documentation, but not everyone has it. So now we have to breach that gap and get to the stage where majority of organizations, majority of institutions do have paperwork in place, do have exercises annually or even more often, etc., etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we also get answer from Robert, who I understand is online? 6 minutes. 6 minutes on one. Okay, sorry. Wait another 6 minutes. Okay, I see. Okay, but let's move to Jānis Kalusbergs then. Yeah, please.
Thank you. So I have 6 minutes, not 3 1. So when yesterday I was thinking about the topic, I went, okay, 40 minutes will be quite okay for me to speak, and now I have a problem how to squeeze in 3 minutes. Thank you for 6 minutes for Robert. What I wanted to start as minister is mentioning is that what we currently have, naming social preparedness, culture of readiness, military preparedness, naming. So in early days when I was starting in this business, you were not mentioning all of them, this resilience part. It was total and territorial defense when we are speaking of this. This was the first task on my desk, in fact, starting to, should we go this path? So I'm personally quite skeptical about the concept, not in theory, but in reality. Therefore, first thing to do, as you were asking, what should we do? First, understand where we really land, what is the picture currently we are facing. And when we speak of resilience, very often then we have a Bible here speaking of cyber resilience. There is former fire people here, so you must be resilient and ready for fires and many other things, and where it tackles sometimes operational level. And I feel there's an element where, in my own experience, being back in 80s and 90s, when you speak about whole society approach, that time when I was on barricades, that was huge majority of my society. But what is important to understand that at that moment it was not all society. We were around the basic thing like a concept. Later we called it constitution because people on the streets were not at that time thinking of our old constitution or satversme of Latvian main law, but they were out to be for their country, for their sovereignty. That was somewhere in the air. And it took only few, or even 1 year, when we realized that, again, our nation is just a normal nation trying to build up their passes, to reach out to this whole society approach. You know, I wish good luck, and I believe politicians in particular, Baiva and many others know that it's not such an easy thing to reach out to everybody. We are very split, and we must realize that we are very different. And only when you have this example, like Ukrainian case currently, when really independents are by majority supported in Ukraine, it's still not whole society who are behind. So in case of crisis, under stress test, we manage to gather majority who are supporting. But therefore, the first thing really is this big constitution In dictatorships, when you try to mobilize them, you have leader around you, and people probably are not going on their own beliefs, but so much of obedience. How to reach out? This is a question to reach out on which cases, and resilience to what? We consider there exists some kind of normality, which in historical perspective, where we currently live, is novelty. And I'm sorry to say, decades ago, when international norms and regulations were created, always I would have questions of observance. We have United Nations still existing, and Latvia is in Security Council. I'm very happy about this. But reality I'm sorry, I'm running too fast. Thank you for correction. I feel we are already in. But reality is that basically we are close to era that war is part of normality. So what to do with the United Nations in that description? So how to mobilize? How to mobilize? And definitely in this part, dictators have their win situation, in situation when we can deliver services or sufficient conditions for survival and well-being that it all works. And here definitely those operational, tactical things where majority of people say, okay, if it's all running, it seems should be a good idea. Don't imagine that all people are always thinking that in those very idealistic terms, like your own country. So only when we are tested, we can see where really we are moving. So, and the final part on this, to be a bit provocative, and I will quote here, we need to confront a very uncomfortable truth. Our entire system is built on the illusion of stability, the idea that things will just work out, that we can rely on institutions, economies, governments to maintain balance indefinitely. But deep down, we all know this is house of cards. Sounds like good Russian narrative. But the whole point, it's true. It's based on our belief and in our trust. And the trust is element which, one, Yanis, you were showing all those, how we trust government, how many things. But the first, there are some other studies, how much we trust our neighbors, our municipal communities. So trust starts from each of us going up to the government. And this is really scarce resource which we should be working on. And how to do? Sorry, Melis. It's another 40 minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We don't have 40 minutes to continue with this particular discussion, but maybe one takeaway could be that if you talk about whole society approach, this is more like an ideal type. And we saw that actually data shows that we have quite limited resilience at the moment, and any kind of improvement towards this ideal type would be actually a positive development. So it's a more of a spectrum in the sense rather than black and white, that do we have a whole society approach or not, but can we sort of step by step move towards it, and we probably never achieve it. But it's more about the process rather than the final end. So I'm sorry if it's a bit like a rough interpretation on the basis of your comments. But let's move on, and please, Linda.
Yes, good morning to everyone. I'm very honored to represent actually the people here. I'm not alone. Behind me is people of Latvia and Europe actually. And I'm in a very good position actually, because researchers usually knows the tendency is actually the first ones. And currently what I can share with you very shortly, that people in Latvia and I would say in Europe lives in dual feeling. In one hand, they are afraid, they are scared, they don't know what will happening, the political situation and so on and so on, so people are scared. But on the other hand, we are quite optimistic about the future. We hope that overall someone will come and rescue us, help something. And the most important thing is, I think that the people who look for future positive, look because not somebody will come to help, because I know that I'm very prepared, I'm ready for the future and for any crisis. So this is very important.
Thank you very much. And now I see that Robert Esala is on screen. So as I mentioned before, he's joining us from the Washington State, from the Military Emergency Department. And we're discussing here basically how governments, businesses, communities can contribute for together building a whole society approach to resilience. So what are your thoughts? Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, and greetings from the northwest corner of the United States. And we live in one of the most hazardous parts of the country in terms of our threat profile. We essentially look at about 10 natural hazards, about 7 man-made hazards, and potentially adding another one, looking at the possibility of nation state and terrorist actions within Washington. So I think that resilience really begins with understanding the landscape that you're operating in, what the threats are, understanding and building the relationships with everybody that you will depend on in the event something does happen and something goes wrong. And so we have very close relationships between local and tribal governments, state government, and the federal governments, where it's a partnership among all of us, plus our non-governmental partners, working together to look at and plan for and understand, what the gaps are and what we're doing to plug those gaps. I don't think that we live under the illusion of perfect stability and the fact that everything is going to be smooth sailing, because we've got a very significant hazard sitting off the coast of our state that will trigger a magnitude 9 earthquake every 300 to 500 years. And the last one happened 325, coming up on 326 years ago. So it's not it's inevitable. We know that it's going to happen, and we just hope for the time to properly prepare for that. So it's a matter of continual outreach, a continual embracing of partners from everybody who has a stake in response and recovery, making sure that we have systems, that we exercise, that we train, that we take our lessons learned, and we continue to build on our capabilities so that we are able to deal with the maximum of maximums. And at the same time, we need to be able to educate the people in our state that, based on our geography, if that maximum happens, help is not going to be there right away. They must develop the ability to care for themselves for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks until help is able to come in. And so it's just this continual analysis, planning, what we need to do to be able to close gaps and build the capacity to respond, and then ultimately to bounce back, build back stronger than we were before the event happens. And so in a nutshell, that's our approach.
Thank you very much, Robert. Let's move on to the following topic. Let's talk about civilian-military partnerships. And civilian here is defined in a broader sense, so meaning businesses, communities, civil society. And I would like to ask our panelists that, what type of civilian-military partnerships you think would be useful to develop in the Baltic region, and what would be the most effective on the basis of your knowledge and experience? Because I think we see quite a different approaches in in the region, for instance, starting with total defense approach in Finland, and then what's somewhat more loose collaboration frameworks in other countries. So maybe we'll start again with Jānis, and then we'll move from here. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Again, I will not directly answer your question because I think some of the other panelists may do it better. But what I would like to do is to follow on to the last speaker, and because I started off by talking about military threats and resilience against external aggression, I think it is really important that we, and in particular our children and grandchildren, recognize that during this century, humanity is going to be facing existential threats. And those threats include, for instance, global warming. And global warming, we think about seas rising. That could affect, for instance, Latvia quite severely. But what about the people who simply have to move, otherwise they will die? And this is going to happen in the next couple of decades. And how long will it be before those people who have to move realize that the Baltic states are absolute paradise and empty, nearly empty? Nuclear proliferation. What do we think will happen if Ukraine loses this war? Well, everyone who has a powerful neighbor, for instance, South Korea, Japan, will understand that if you don't have nuclear weapons, then you are going to be overtaken, occupied. And that means that nuclear proliferation is a very realistic threat that we have to deal with. Biological threats. This is not just a question of more COVID-19s. There will be, of course, pandemics. But for instance, unless artificial intelligence works out a new way of replacing the antibiotics that we've been overusing, then we're going to find that they are no longer working. And then, of course, we come to artificial intelligence and what all of that could mean. Now, what that really, the outcome of all of this is that we need, when we talk about civilian-military partnership and all of society approach, we need to concentrate on the younger generations so that they understand this applies particularly to them, and it is not a problem that politicians alone are going to be able to solve. And that's why in Latvia, for instance, we have started teaching defense systems, civilian defense capabilities in our schools, and that's become an obligatory part of the subject. But we need to do a great deal more. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert, maybe you can also comment on this question.
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to talk because we've got a model in the states that serves emergency management very effectively. We operate under the paradigm that all disasters are local. They're managed by local first responders, local elected officials. State and federal are in support of local jurisdictions. And within the United States, we've got a couple of different branches of the military between the active duty, the federally directed, federally controlled military, but we also have a National Guard, which is a reserve component, which is located in the state, in individual states, and then is essentially for peacetime type missions at the disposal of the governor. So very often in disaster response, we receive calls to mobilize the National Guard, and we have trained teams to help with firefighting activities. They can go out and fill sandbags during flooding, and serve a variety of other functions because they bring tremendous capabilities and resources. And then ultimately for larger and more widespread disasters, such as in Hurricane Katrina back in 2005, active duty forces can be brought to bear to help stabilize situations and move us on to recovery. So we do form very close relationships with our military partners. They're integrated into the federal emergency management structure so that those capabilities can be presented and brought forward when needed. And so military by relationship is truly a key resource that emergency management can use for difficult and more extreme circumstances.
Thank you. Jānis Karlsbergs, please. Yeah.
Thank you. And here definitely some Ukrainian military would be the best to tell what are the new realities on the ground with civil-military relations. But of course we were thinking when I still was in the Defense Department, thinking about the problem in early days in a bit different context. So where we were coming from, mass armies and during the Cold War, then peace dividends, then we were looking for expeditionary forces. We were convinced here in Latvia as well to have it. So only professional armed forces to get a ticket kind of into NATO, so we all did it, so now we are moving back. Still, when you look for smaller societies, it's really here, this buzzword, the whole society approach is extremely relevant, and here this interconnectedness, only not through civilians itself, but as well civil institutions. So there were mentioned already a few aspects before, but just fighting war as well. And I remember when we with colleagues were thinking how to get the first-hand information when you look currently at the battleground in Ukraine, what kind of so that's in Russian version, forces stepping into the Ukrainian territory, gathering reconnaissance intelligence, and how the locals could be the part of the whole community to deliver information. Of course, we are going and speaking about sensor systems, we speak about artificial intelligence, but at the end of the day, human communication is still a part of relevant thing. In fact, when we had our Shahed going here, it was coming as well from civil society at the end of the day. And so this is a fundamental part of community, how to fight war as well. How to do, here I would be definitely not the exact person to tell, but seeing that we build our structures, we should be thinking as well of structuring our military, most probably very differently, having civilians and part of this. Here, what I ended with the trust, the word of trust, is fundamental question, because it's absolutely clear that we will not give access to classified information to each and every Latvian or any other civilian. But this is part of the trust where we trust people. There are huge risks always, but how we manage them and move on. So it's a big question. I think we should really dig deep, and here I think a Ukrainian example would be the lead in our transforming our relation, our armed forces, including relations between military and civilians.
Thank you. Let's move on more concretely and talk about cybersecurity. And obviously the attacks have been increasing a lot. And I think the public actually doesn't feel or know as much as people who work in this area actually do, because in a way it's a good news, right? So
absolutely.
that experts know, but wider public is not maybe unaware of the amount of attacks that have been happening. But Paiva, maybe you could tell us a little bit how organizations, how individuals can be better prepared for cyber attacks. So what is sort of essential cyber hygiene that we should all adopt and follow in order to be more resilient?
Absolutely, and before I jump into this, I would also bring very small examples on how civil-military collaboration is already happening in cyberspace and enhancing all our resilience. So just to mention shortly, We have National Guard's Cyber Defense Battalion in Latvia, and very close cooperation is happening between private sector, public sector, and this battalion already for exercises, like for exercises as Locked Shields, as NATO exercises where we train. We train together and we defend systems together. This is one sort of little example that is happening, and I think is happening very well. Latvia has been achieving very good results in the last Locked Shields. And another example is that we've been working together with the Canadian Armed Forces for the last 4 years already, since the beginning of 2022, since March. And they are here on ground in Latvia helping us to do threat hunting exercises in our critical infrastructures. And this is very real activity that helps both sides. It helps us to enhance resilience and security of our systems, and it helps them to understand better how the enemy works, what are the steps that they are leaving, etc., etc. And these two little examples actually bring us also the answer to your last question. What should organizations do? They have to prepare, so preparations, exercises, of course, all this paperwork, but they also have to be very active in trying to detect the slightest movement that is abnormal in their infrastructure. So the sooner we detect, the sooner we can launch, for example, threat hunting to see if the enemy is there or not, and the sooner we detect, the easier it is to eradicate. If intruder has been in the infrastructure for years, it takes years or even more than enemy was there to clean the infrastructure. If we react fast, if we find it fast, the chances that we lose important data or that we risk actually downtimes is much, much smaller. And in this regard, I think again, the legal framework and activities that all the national cybersecurity centers are doing in the Baltics, in the Nordics, are very much in line to protect our critical infrastructures, to launch threat hunting, to establish security operations centers, to be able to detect and to be able to react.
Thank you very much. And let's actually now move more towards discussing leadership in crisis and leading change, if in those sort of difficult circumstances. Yeah, you all have quite a lot of experience, so in different fields. And what we also saw from the data is that public is not generally well prepared for the crisis. So I would like to ask you that on the basis of your experience, what would be some of the effective strategies when the crisis would occur? What type of leadership is needed? What should we do? So yeah, please just share your experiences. I mean, maybe you would like to start, Linda, a little bit talking also about the data that sort of emerges from Norstat versus this sort of, as I mentioned before, that people are not prepared, but they are sort of hopeful about the future. So, yeah, please. Yeah.
Yes, I can share from society view that actually we need to understand that in society, this leadership is absolutely minority. The largest part of the society, they are like followers, but not the followers in the bad way. The people mainly are looking what's happening, what will happen. I will collect some information. But this minority who is like really like ready more for crisis, these are people who are with I can do attitude. They are those who ask more questions, why, what to do, or where we are going. And also these people who are more ready for crisis situations, they are like in daily life more flexible for any changes. They are those who are ready to try something new, they are ready to learn something, and so on and so on. So overall, we need to understand that people will not go to train by themselves. we need to motivate them somehow. We can put some parallels with sustainability. It was a very popular word some years ago that society actually didn't understand what it is. The largest majority thought that it is like sorting the waste. So, but we know that it is something more, and it is important that people know that crisis, it is not just like something suddenly happened and then we are thinking what we will do, but we need to be prepared and we need to train ourselves to be prepared for that. And very important for us, for people also, is to identify their own support network. Because like we have friends, families, colleagues, communities, and so on and so on. And it is important at least to start to write down what is your support network in case if something will happen, to whom you will help and who will support you. So.
Thank you. Yeah, let's move on to Jānis, please.
Yep. I would like to refer back to one of the most important words which has been said this morning. Jānis Carlsberg said it, trust. And I will give an example referring to Biber. The reason CERT-LV is one of the best certs in the European Union is because they have positioned themselves in such a way that they are not seen by people who need their assistance as some sort of branch of government which is going to punish them for not having done X, Y, Z to ensure that they don't have the sort of attacks which, of course, happen to all of us. And that is a question of trust. Formerly, I was head of the Latvian National Security Authority, and I personally believe that we overclassify in NATO, in the European Union, and nationally hugely, far, far too much. And if we are going to be successful in gaining the trust of our populations and being able to overcome the threats that resilience poses, we need to be truthful to them, and that means we do not have to classify everything and keep information close just within those who have it. And there is a very good example of overcoming serious crises in Latvia. The 2008 financial crisis hit Latvia much harder than almost anywhere else. Our own fault, without any shadow of a doubt. But the fact that a government could reduce people's wages by substantial amounts, cut budgets sometimes up to 50% in ministries, and still get re-elected, showed that if you are honest, if you are trusted, if you are truthful to the population, and the population will respond in a suitable way.
Thank you. Baiba, please.
I can just agree that trust, and I also think clarity, because in a crisis situation, be it smaller or larger, I think it is very confusing if the messages are not aligned. So if the message is clear and aligned, and people are not contradicting each other, sitting on one panel or behind different screens, then it is much easier for people to accept difficult truth, to do difficult things, but at least everyone is saying the same. Yes, we have to do this. So I think that's very important. And the trust message, absolutely. I know that to earn trust, it takes very long time, but you can lose it in overnight, over 5 minutes, so easily. So this is a very, very thin thing. And here, of course, AI, all the disinformation, all these things are not contributing. They are making our life more difficult, and we have to work harder to prove that there is still a value in this pure human trust networks that we are building. Thank you.
Thank you. Jānis, please.
Melis, this is a really tough question, and I will not repeat what was already said, but the most important things, even not during wartime, crisis time, every day, is to make decisions. So this is the most important thing. The question, if you want to sustain your decision-making power, especially in democracies, then comes the trust question in. But when we observe currently those states at war, including Ukraine, problem what I see, a lot of things which are to transform the cabinet to really so-called war type of cabinet, when you still have so much of local business, national business, all the rumors or conspiracies in between, it's all still under the cover. So when we speak here in the West, where in fact I would always argue that we are at war, so and if somebody calls it a hybrid, you know, it's again just to say nothing. So we are at war. But of course, according to law, we are at peace. So, and we play according to peacetime games and rules. So this really is this transformation within democracies, keep running, making decisions, and to achieve support. The only thing which was not mentioned here, and whom I would be if I would not mention communication. This is definitely where you need to be, this trustworthy, and communication be part. But decisions still, not forget, governments are making decisions. If they're incapable to make decisions, then there is no government. Thank you.
Thank you, Jānis. And Robert, please share your experience.
Fully concur with everything that's been said so far. I think that there's been some very valid and truly useful points made. I would just add that it's having the courage to act when you don't necessarily have all the information that you would like to have, because you're never going to have 100% of the picture and see it accurately, but you have to act, and you have to fight paralysis, and you have to fight inertia and act decisively. And in this field that we're in, you're going to have many opportunities to, unfortunately, to do that. And for example, we did a major catastrophic earthquake exercise back in 2016. The key lesson learned was that we were not going to be able to get help to our population quickly, like we had previously hoped that we could. And so we just made a decision on the fly coming out of that as part of our after action process. And previously we had told everybody to be 3 days ready. That's enough to see you through a disaster. And no coordination, nothing. We immediately switched that to a minimum of 2 weeks. And telling people the further out you are, the more you have to be prepared to be on your own before help arrives. And we socialized that decision after the fact, not before, because it was the right thing to do.
Thank you. Let's take this last idea from Robert, that basically, how can we build a mindset or preparedness culture that is a bit more long-term, not just 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, but let's say minimum 2 weeks. Is that possible here in Latvia? Is it possible in the Baltics? So anybody who would like to take a lead on that? Yeah.
You should speak about it. And I do think if you try to cover it and not find the right words, if you speak, you know, there are some concepts. The concepts that all people are stupid and you can fool them all the time, and others people are not stupid. So sometimes it takes time to cover that you are fooled. But I believe, and I do think an example which Jānis was mentioning during 2008 crisis, financial crisis, if you speak, prepare people. In fact, I remember we had quite a discussion early days when we were speaking, when already under wartime Russians, when we have those elf scrambles in Ministry of Defense, having whether we should make it public when the Russians are crossing somewhere our territorial waters or something, and make it public. And that was a huge mess. In fact, in NATO, there were people who were not very happy with us that we make it public. It's a small thing. But the whole point, and then I remember after 2014, when each weekend was basically, we were expecting all those snap exercises by Russians. We were waiting in our war room what's going to happen. And it's usually Friday evening, you know, and we had internal discussions. Oh, come on, people will become crazy. They will run wherever and start to cry and shout. And I know, you know, it's our obligation to speak the truth. We must communicate this part, and there was no hysteria whatsoever. So basically, if you don't speak, hysteria starts because there is no empty space. Somebody will cover it, so that's we should be covering. So if we have message, we must deliver it, and straight as it is.
Yes, I can admit to this comment. It is important to find a way how people listen to you. Because around us is so much information, and in one moment, people just stop to listen. And this simply language, it is the most challenging, because when you need to speak with people that they understand you, they listen to you, it takes much more effort. And I think we can change a lot if we manage that people listen us. And if they listen, they understand, and they are motivated to do things in the right way.
Right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think this goes back once again to explaining what the threats really are. And it is not just Russia, because the war in Ukraine will end at some stage in the future. Russia's approach to its colonial past will probably change, but until then we have to prepare, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. But there are a lot of other threats as well, and they are the ones to which the more apolitical part of our population, particularly young people, particularly those in school, are much more open, because these are the threats which they are going to encounter during their lifetimes, and this is a way of building something up from the bottom rather than trying to create it from the top.
But I have a concrete question. For instance, that if a banking system is under cyber attack, you know, in practical terms, does it mean that people should be carrying more cash with them?
Well, that's one of the very good reasons not to give up cash, right? Although we so much love electronic money and all the banking cards, but I think we do have to keep cash for foreseeable future in some reserves, and that is one of the reasons. Electricity, banking systems under attack. Of course, you can diversify, have multiple banks, multiple cards, but in case of major crisis, it can happen that cards are just simply not accepted.
Sure. Yeah.
We have to face also those situations.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
I would just add to that in a much worse case, and we, as I said, we have to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. Let us remember that our energy infrastructure in the Baltic states is tiny compared to that of Ukraine, and Russia has been systematically trying to destroy Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Now, if they were able to do that in the Baltic states, there's no electricity, and not only that, you can't get any money, and you can't go to the bank because the bank doesn't know how much money you have in your bank account. But even worse than that, one of the key questions which will be discussed later, I believe, is communication. And Yanis mentioned it, if you don't communicate with the general public, they do not know what is going on, and they will believe all sorts of rumors which are flying around, and therefore the ability to communicate is really, really important. And how do you do that if you don't have power?
All right, thank you.
Just a very small remark. This year there was electricity blackout in Spain and Portugal.
Right.
These reasons were different, but I think it was a very good example of what happens when you really have full country blackout. I'm not going into details, but it's something that we all have to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'd like to jump in quickly. If
yeah,
I
please.
could.
Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Preparedness it really is hazard agnostic, and that we take essentially an all hazards approach to preparedness, and it really doesn't matter whether we're preparing for the major earthquake or a major cyber events. The impacts on our population are going to be the same. And so it gets down to a matter of education, a matter of continuing to put the message out there in a way that does not scare people, that encourages them to take action. And then we have to understand that you're going to have people who will take that message to heart. Some will ignore it. And then there are others who may want to buy into the message, but lack the means. And so we have to be able to address all of those going forward. But I would submit that really to try and move this needle significantly forward, the point was made earlier, it's getting it into the schools, educating the younger generation, getting them to buy in. And when they buy in, they will bring along the rest of us.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And let's move our last topic, which is future or futures. We can talk about it in singular if somebody has a very strong vision about the future, or we can talk about it plural, what are the possible futures. And I would like to ask you, what is, in your view, the future threat landscape? What type of threats do you see there? What are the kind of trends that are obvious, and what are the weak signals or trends that might emerge that we don't pay sufficient attention to? I would be also interested in, like, how do you think about it analytically? You know, what type of approaches maybe could be useful for us? Thank you. And Jānis, I see that you want to start. Yeah, please, go ahead.
No, it's an easy question, why should not answer, all the current threats and those who we don't envisage. So that's simple. It's so easy to answer this question. But, there have been so many projects, whether from NATO and many institutions from futures, multiple definitely futures with different studies. And I believe most of the part are somewhere in waste bins, some are having their own life recycled, hopefully, in a green way. We definitely, this part of preparedness, when we look to the future, therefore my part, when I was thinking about normality, that we expect living in, or we were living a few years ago in kind of normality, it's very illusionary. The things are constantly in parallel dimensions happening within societal structures, in particular, within technological developments, which we can try to grasp when we look for whether economists or sociologists looking for those futures from their own perspective. But those things which appear out, not all segments are there, especially when we currently, what is on the visible side, we speak about the futures when we look on political landscape, because it's kind of, you can understand. It's difficult sometimes to affect when you look at far movements in many countries taking part. But you speak about those things. You don't envisage, naturally, those who you don't envisage, scientists can't speak about them. So the part of this normality, we should realize there is nothing normal. This part of is a surprise where we live. And in fact, we were very, very lucky, I would say, living this peaceful years in parts of the world. Clearly, we don't share the same futures with many others. And a recent meeting in China, I think, is another example, very vivid example. There are totally different realities on the same globe. So therefore, we must prepare only ourselves for those things. And I think what was commented from, it is a deep night in the United States, I guess, even in Washington State. This is a part of being prepared for multiple things which you can do and trying to do, definitely artificial intelligence could bring a new surprises for us. So, but what exactly, we are just guessing at the moment. Thank you.
All right. Vaiva, please.
Yes, well, I don't have any crystal ball, and I agree that probably there are many possible futures. Again, not being very original in the cyber. Of course, biggest things and biggest unknowns at the same time are AI and all the infrastructure and narratives that it is bringing. I think that being vulnerable in the information sphere and being vulnerable to fake news is something that we'll still see a lot of how this weakness will impact our societies in the future. So all these unknowns together, yeah, they create a lot of doubt and uncertainty in the society in general, and also the level of general fraud and threats to general public is creating uncertainty, and those are already threats that we face now. What will happen in 2 years, 5 years, it's very hard to say. So I think, again, agreeing with Jānis what just said, that what we can do, we have to stay calm, we have to use our critical thinking, and we have to prepare for those things that we can foresee. It's very hard to prepare for those things that we cannot, right? If a major earthquake hits Latvia, well, we are definitely not prepared, because that's something we are not expecting here, right? So it's hard to prepare for something like that, or volcano suddenly in Gaiziņš erupting. But for those more realistic threats, we have to prepare, we have to think about them, and we cannot foolish ourselves that they will not happen in our lifetimes.
But then we would be bigger than Munamägi, that's very important, so.
Well, that's something, yeah, to consider.
Yeah, please, go ahead. Yes.
If we've still got time.
We do have time, yeah. We started much earlier than planned.
Right. Earlier on, I went through a whole series of existential threats, and then also aggressive subkinetic threats. But I think there is one that we have not mentioned, and that is the threat to democracy. And we must remember that every generation, as Joe Biden said in a recent interview, no matter what one may think of Joe Biden, but he's right there, every generation has to fight for democracy as well. And if we look in Europe at the rise of reform in the UK, at the chaos in the French administration, in the rise of Alternative für Deutschland in Germany, the new Polish president, then there you have 4 of the most important countries within our continent are having serious problems. And if things go in a direction which is perhaps one would consider less democratic but more populist, with promises which cannot be fulfilled, then we may find ourselves in a very, very different Europe. And that's why each of us, in each of our countries, and together through NATO and the European Union, must do everything that we can to maintain the systems upon which we have relied and which have given us peace over the last 80 years.
Thank you. Linda?
Yes, from my side, I can say that, once again, that society doesn't like changes. They like that everything is constant and no specific changes overall, but this is a new reality, that everything is changing, and for society it's very hard. And we need to take into account that we cannot give information that make them more scared, because they are very stressed, and this is about information. information, discussion with society in the way how they understand us. And the most important, I think, is to get that people speak, discuss between themselves. They spread word of mouth. They are telling to their friends, relatives, colleagues, to motivate also by opinion leaders. So not just listen what institutions are communicating.
Thank you very much. And, Robert, how does the future threat landscape look from the Washington state?
Well, we live in exponential times. The pace of change is ever accelerating. And the ability of governments, of laws, of structures to stay up with that pace of change is challenging. I think there's certain things that we can look out there and we can make educated guesses about what the future holds. We can see the broad trends, but what concerns me are the things that we're not necessarily seeing. So, 5, 6 years ago, who would have thought of the weaponization of drones as being essentially transformative to how wars are fought? Who, with the introduction of the internet, would have thought of the weaponization of computer networks and cyberspace? And so what really concerns me going forward is what new technologies are out there just being conceived of that are out there on the horizon that then are themselves subject to weaponization and change. And so all of this, to me, generates tremendous social pressures. We see increasing polarization. We see fracture lines appearing within society. And at the same time, we have people who play on those fracture lines and are very adept at manipulating those fracture lines and populations. And so I think we really need to be very, very aware of the changing landscape, how fast that landscape is changing, and hopefully never again letting ourselves be caught by a failure of imagination.
Thank you very much. And I understand the foreign minister is also willing to share her thoughts about the future threat landscape. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Just a quick one. I think that is something where we have to recognize what is happening with technological advance, which will be extremely rapid, which is extremely rapid. If we look at military capabilities already, or dual sort of technological capabilities, for example, stemming from the development in the quant computing, whether it's quant computing itself, whether it's a quant sensing, where already our scientists, but Danish, Norwegian companies are working on specific systems which won't require GPS anymore, which will be autonomous fully, which will be fully AI operated. It will change the whole military civilian landscape quite significantly. So that is one factor, I think, that we just have to take into account, that it will be very difficult to model, actually, with the current sort of mindset. So much more technological, automatized prediction models will be required, which, again, requires then not only among the scientists and companies, but also all of us to work together, private sector. But then also, as I mentioned earlier, is that decentralized type of mission control and understanding in various groups of society, the quick responses, which requires testing, exercising, trying, starting from families to groups, to villages, to companies, and so on and so forth. So I think those are the two mixes where I see one, the development happening, and the other responses also being shaped, thus raising the joint level in our countries and societies of prediction, because reaction will be too late. So it's about trying to predict. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Foreign Minister for this comment. I also would like to thank very much for the panelists for their contribution. You were great. And I would like to hand it over to Jānis, and he will let us know what will happen next. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Meelis. And now I would like to invite the next panel to get ready, panel number 2 on economy and resilience. And I will be helped by Kristaps Petersons today as the lead, as the moderator. Kristaps Petersons is already ready and will introduce his panel. Welcome, Kristaps, and give Kristaps a warm applause. One of our volunteers today, and we are very much appreciative of your effort, just like we are for the effort of all the volunteers today and around this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Jānis. So I'll try to sit down here, feel how it is. So, good morning. First of all, I am very thankful to CIREN for inviting me to moderate this second panel. It's about the economy, very close topic to my heart. Thank you also to Meelis and his panel for giving us extra 10 minutes. Thank you. We will use it gladly. What else? I mean, in today's environment, of course, it is very crucial to talk about the business and the economics, because I remember that 20 years ago, when I interviewed my bachelor thesis supervisor, Raul Rebane, Professor Raul Rebane, and I hope Raul is watching this over our live stream in Delphi. Raul, if you see this, greetings from sunny Riga. What he said that the war, the modern war today, is defined by only 2 major aspects in the equation, and it's that one side is attacking another side with a certain amount of speed and power. And earlier, very crucial role was also to distance, so how far this one side was from another one. Nowadays, in the modern war, this distance is taken out of this equation, and it hasn't been such a big important thing. But this weakest link, this link has been, so to say, supplemented by something that is basically very important. That is what the first panel underlined here, and it is trust. So do we trust each other? And are we united? This is very important. And do we know what kind of responsibilities we have among us? And for those of you who maybe opened this morning's Financial Times, you found an article there about frozen Russian assets. And the Belgian foreign minister said that we can move on with this 200 billion assets if we share responsibility, legal, like this outcome of this whole thing among all member countries. So it is important that we define what kind of responsibilities we have. And I'm here today to moderate this panel, and we today dive into resilience from 3 angles, I would say that. First, the economic strength. How do we build long-term growth and make resilience attractive for investors while also keeping supply chains affordable? I think it's a very important issue. The second, our lifelines, airports, energy, food, finance, are very vital in this situation, yet very fragile. And how do regions protect and fund them before crisis strikes? It's also an important issue. I think that we will hear from our distinguished panelists here today. And third, of course, who picks up the check who pays for this. I think we will touch upon this one as well. So everyone wants resilience, but really no one wants the bill. So let's unpack this all together. My name is Chris Peterson. I am the author and producer of a weekly economics and business TV show, Median Report. And starting from next week, we are going pan-Baltic, so I invite you all to tune in your TVs and YouTubes and Spotifys and follow Median Report. But it would be very polite to introduce all the speakers, and I am a polite person, so I will do this as quickly as possible. So we have Johnny Anderson with us. He's the founder of Airport Works, with quarter of a century experience in airport management. Please welcome. Gediminas Almantas, former CEO and now a chairman of the board of Lithuanian Airports. Hello, Gediminas. So, as the next one, Toms Auškāps, communications and development director of Baltikovo. So, if you buy eggs in retail store, you know what Baltikovo is. And we are joined today also by Andriy Yarmak, the director at Ukrainian State Air Traffic Service Enterprise. Do we have Andriy? No? He's not. Oh, he was not permitted to leave the country. Okay. Okay, so, yeah. Okay, then we have two other speakers. One from utilities sector is represented today by none other than Krišjānis Krūmiņš. Welcome. He's the chairman of the board of LLC Rīgas Ūdens, Rīga Water. And last but not least, the driving force behind Ignitis Renewables Latvia, Baiba Lāce. Let's have a round of applause for our experts. So we're all here. Hello, hello. Okay. First question is a very general question, and I would maybe invite you to answer it as honestly as you can about your own respective industries, to give a little bit of a maybe overview how you feel and what your experience is, how resilient the industry and the businesses in these industries are currently in this situation. We'll start with Toms.
Hello, everyone. Thanks. Big honor to be here. And hello, everyone. So I'm happy to represent the sector of food security. I'm representing the egg production company, egg producing egg products. So from our perspective, I think when we talk about resilience, I think it's very important to underline that it's, in our understanding, it is about independence. That's a base for resilience, and more specifically, it's about, in the food sector, we talk about self-sufficiency. You can talk about it in many different levels. You can talk about your personal level of independence or self-sufficiency in different aspects. You can talk about the company self-sufficiency, about the Latvia self or country. You can talk about the Baltic scope. You can talk about the European independence. So this is I think very important when we talk about the security, to be able to provide your own.
Maybe what are the risks not being independent? Can you just give this another aspect of this access?
It's okay. You can have this comparison on the personal level. If you are running out of water at home or electricity, you need to borrow it from someone else. So then. In this...
you mean supply chains and these kind of type of things?
You have to make sure that you can survive without others. If you cannot, you have to make sure that you you have, for example, okay, we are producing a lot of eggs. Then if I'm short of electricity, if I'm not producing enough electricity, I should produce double the amount of eggs so I can exchange it with Krišjānis. You know, I can exchange eggs against water. So I think from the country perspective or from the region perspective, it's very important to think about, first of all, to produce as much as you need for your own needs, and then think about those sectors which, for instance, you are not able to cover yourself. And then first thing in my mind is to put a lot of efforts to make that deficiency solved, or you have to, like, for instance, coffee. It's rather impossible to grow it in the Baltics.
Okay.
But then you have to work on building something more as a format of instrument of exchange to cover.
If you can give me a score from 0 to 10, let's say for this independence, how you feel right now, the
Which
Baltics.
scope? Like food?
Yeah, in
food
your
or
industry.
eggs? Eggs, we are 15.
All right.
From 1 to 10.
Happy
and
place.
I think food-wise, we are quite well prepared and self-sufficient.
Very good, very good. Nice to hear. Krišjānis, let's go to you. Utilities.
Jānis, first of all, thanks for inviting and share our experience regarding utilities. And I totally agree with Toms that electricity and water are the backbone of some resilience and strengthening economy. So take a look around. There are more than 600,000 people, and every morning Riga Water and 24/7 we are responsible that those people can realize that there will be fresh drinking water in their taps. And of course on Saturday nights, Old Town responsible for beer in the taps. But to be back in serious questions, I think that I believe that we have made sound strategy for Riga Water, so we know exactly how to operate our infrastructure, how many kilometers per year we should rehabilitate, and we are in the right direction because currently we are rebuilding 5 times more each year pipes than before in different planning situation. And of course, drinking water, as I said to my colleagues, is a top priority in crisis, in military conflict, in some natural disasters, so the citizens can realize that our investments are sound, that we are not building something that is not useful, and so that we can have that conference here right now and everything is working. And later in details I can...
Yes, of course, we will dive deeper into this. I know that also from statistically from different researchers that the accessibility to water is one of the most biggest fears for people to be cut off. Yeah, so it is like this. So Jānis Kažociņš in the previous panel mentioned energy as one of these prime examples to focus on. So what about the energy and energy sector?
Hello, everybody. First of all, of course, I'm very excited to assure the continuity of BIBAS in the conference and in the panels, and of course also to assure the diversity ratio here to be more or less proper. But now, of course, yeah, we have heard energy several times. We are hearing, reading, and this is, in a way, backbone, or as we see it, more like blood for the economy. And in the current situation where we are constantly seeing a need to support the increase of funding for security systems, so the growth of economy is essential. And to meet the growing needs and to facilitate the growth of economy, it's just impossible without sufficient supply of energy. And actually, investors are looking for oversupply in energy, for stable production, for competitive prices. And in the latest years also, the question which is asked is that economy requires green energy, not just the energy, but green energy. And that's probably why I was invited to take part in this discussion, as I'm representing the leading company in Baltic region when we talk about renewable energy. And this is Ignitis Renewable. And I'm happy to take part here, and I will be trying to answer all the challenging questions related to our industry.
Baiba. Thank you, Baiba. One extra question to you. These investments in security in energy sector, of course, they most likely are passed to end customers. Is this a potential that you are also as an industry communicating that we need to invest in security, and this is actually something that we need to do?
I believe that communication is crucial, always, everywhere, and about all the aspects and things. And we have heard that also in the previous panel, that communication, direct communication, honest communication, building trust, etc. So when we talk about the increase in our bills and energy bills as one of those, and we have seen in particularly in Latvia from July that there is increase in our energy bills about the balancing part. So of course it's crucial to communicate properly to the society why, and that we all are responsible for, and actually we are not just sharing the pride and proud of reconnection from the BREL,
yes,
but also the bill for this.
Yes,
so
we will talk about who pays for all this, of course. Airports, I think you both can answer the same question. Gediminas, maybe start with you.
Yeah, so I'll start with my elevator pitch for airports. For me, critical starting point is that in the Baltics, we operate in a way like islands what concerns connectivity. There is no alternative to aviation, and aviation is critical for investments and business interaction. So with all respect and criticism that goes to railway development like Rail Baltica or roads development, we don't really have alternative for connecting with critical partner markets for a business. So aviation is absolutely critical for that. Good thing is that pre-pandemic figures are back very quickly. So on the passenger traffic, in a very few years, we have statistics that is even better than it was before pandemic. So that's a good news. It means that people are really willing to travel, and remote technologies like Teams, Zooms, or Google Meets, they replace for a while, but not forever, the relationship. I mean, and that covers both business and the leisure traffic. The difficult part of business today in investing infrastructure is that there is additional element of defense and military that is added on investments, on the requirements for the infrastructure, and it's expensive. So somebody should pay the bill. On the operational side as well, the situation is much more complex than it used to be. I should say all the topics around the drones and the airports is really a mess still. We see it from the public. At the Vilnius airport, we're getting from time to time duty-free cigarettes from Belarus with meteorological balloons. That's so airports are known for duty-free, but not that type of. So that's kind of makes the life more difficult. So my main statement is we need to continue to invest in infrastructure heavily. It's critical for economic development and resilience.
Can you specify which part of infrastructure? Like
the airport infrastructure, railway infrastructure, road infrastructure.
Overall,
I mean the transport infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the bill is more expensive.
Oh, no, thank you. And first of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to this. I see also my old friend Darius is here. Good to see you, Darius. You asked about the status of our business. I have had the, what can I say, privilege to be working in Europe. I'm Norwegian, so I've been running 5 airports over there. I've been working in Africa, in Kenya, and been running airports in Kenya, and lately, last time I was working in Latin America and running airports in the Caribbean. I think our industry, if you look at the aviation sector in general, with all of these external shocks that we have gotten, these disturbances, and I'm talking everything from the war, I'm talking about the tariff from Trump, from the US government, and I also see, what can I say, people getting more careful about spending money, you know, and also we have, after following the pandemic and so on, we saw price increases and everything got more and more and more expensive. So if you're going to ask me to kind of give it kind of from 0 to 10, I would probably give it a 5, because I think that the margins are really, really slim. And I think that for the aviation sector, for the airports, for the airlines, and I think that we have gotten a lot of extra costs, not thrown at us, but we need to take them, as the chairman was just mentioning here, about dual-purpose airports, dual-purpose infrastructure when it comes to military facilities, and so we are at kind of an inflection point or a changing point where we need to do differently than what we have done before. That's kind of, yeah.
Okay. Now, question to probably everyone, but for the one who has the answer, please pick up the mic. I know that you are, as entrepreneurs and leaders, are navigating through the jungle of different regulation. There are demands from society, from your clients. There are probably something that the government asks you to do in the times of pre-crisis or a potential crisis or something like that, because we remember COVID times and so we had some real life tests here. Can you maybe explain to someone out there who maybe do not really understand what it takes to navigate through this jungle? So how many balls are in the hand right now at this moment? So I know that energy sector is very, very tight with this all. Maybe Baiba, you can elaborate a little bit to just explain how it is and how many stakeholders, how many policies and everything you need to take in account.
Thank you. Really hard. It's really, it's definitely very, very hard and challenging. And we do understand also the responsibility that we have as an industry. To be more precise, currently, as you most probably all have heard and seen, the disinformation in respect of the renewable energy developments has really become a very hot topic. And the usual NIMBY movement is financed already and organized by not very friendly forces for our region and in general for, I would say, democracy. We as the industry enterprises, we are sometimes forced to cope with issues that actually are not related directly with our daily tasks. Then we invite consultants from security sectors now already to help us, which is most probably not usual situation, and we should be more focused on our direct tasks. But that's the new reality where we all live, and I think we are trying to cope as good as possible. The other balls we should jungle with is, of course, for Baltic region especially, the renewable energy industry is new, very new, and unmature, which means also the regulation, legal regulation, all the acts, they are not yet created properly, and we are therefore in constant changes of the regulatory framework due to the fact that just, yes, there is something in place, but then we understand on the highest levels, national stakeholder levels, that, oh, it doesn't work properly, we should change it, yeah. So, and that brings more and more challenges for us really on daily basis. But what I really want to emphasize is that the potential of the region is 7 times, to produce 7 times more than we need for our internal consumption. And as the leaders, we should understand this potential and use this potential and talk about this potential, because this is an opportunity to really foster the growth of the regional economy, to use this potential, which is given from the God, yeah, to our countries, and to be brave enough on political level to talk about this, to help people to change, to adapt to those changes that that the renewable energy will bring to the regions. Yeah, that yes, the landscape will look different, but this will give us incredible opportunities. This will strengthen our economy. This will strengthen our, I would say, this will assure the prosperity of the country and of course also our resilience. Yeah? So we will be able to pay for the food, for the water, etc. Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Christian responds to that.
Yes, I have a mic myself. Thanks. So, a couple years ago, there were flood in Ogre. And of course, mayor called me and asked if there's possibility to have some equipment there, because we have high capacity water pumps. And last year in July, when rainstorm hit Latvia, again, Rīga Water helped out, for instance, Jūrmala, with our heavy machinery and different kind of sewage pumps and water pumps. So what I'm saying is that in such crisis situation, people look at us because we are the major company in water utility sector in Latvia, and so we are responsible for helping out to assure that Riga citizens also feel sure that we will help out them. And what I'm saying is that stakeholders are in such situations, all the technicians, mayors of other city, of course Riga as well, and citizens of Latvia, people in Riga, and also construction companies. Without them, we are not able to help out in different situations. And of course, I'm coming to regulator. The regulator is the state institution who regulates the tariff, and of course the tariff is there is a limit for that, and it means that we can put in costs in only sound purchases, investments. So, and I think it's very good that in Riga Water we can prove them that we need extra electricity generators, that we need heavy machinery, and what a shame I have in year 2022 when Ukrainian colleagues ask, do we have in Riga mobile drinking water treatment station. No, it doesn't have. So, and now I believe that soon, that year or coming year, we will have some mobile stations that we can provide drinking water. And so there are several such learning lessons learned that we need to buy. Of course, we need to buy additional electricity generators. We need to have our independent fuel station, and etc., etc. So, but of course, armored excavators, as I have seen in Adaži, no one will allow us to buy.
Yeah,
so
in that case. But this was an interesting case, what you mentioned. I put myself, for example, in the shoes of a mayor of a town. My first reaction would be called emergency services and ask for heavy machinery to them, but they probably haven't invested in that, and you did.
I think the right thing is that to put on the work on daily basis this heavy machinery, it can't be bought and somewhere put on a warehouse in such crisis situation. So I believe that, for instance, in utility, Riga Water should be the owner of all that special equipment.
Okay.
The question is, do we need only for us, or do we need in crisis situations to help out neighboring adjacent regions with our employees as well?
Oh, this is a very interesting topic. Yeah, Gediminas?
Yeah, so I believe a very important element to understand is that in the last 3-4 years, the defense and security domain has shifted from kind of monopoly of the state to the companies a lot, and especially state enterprises. For example, sanctions control. The airport should know now about the suppliers much more than they used to know before, on the procurement level, on the everyday level, and it's a super costly exercise to do it because you need to dig into shareholding structures. It's super costly exercise because it prolongs your processes a lot, because all the critical procurement deals are going for the national security approval, and then you should suddenly not buy from the suppliers that you used to have it. And at the end, I mean, the chemicals for the winter operations at the airport that we used to buy from Belarus, we're not buying, and it's double price now. So those elements, I mean, they are the reality. It's in everyday business that we see it. Sanctions control, it goes from the passenger traffic up to cargos and the procurement, and you need to incorporate this in your processes. So and it happened overnight. So let's say in 3-4 of last years, without being prepared, the companies just needed to do it by law.
Yes. Let's now switch to money question. So who picks up the bill? So we all know that preparedness is very costly, and everyone wants it, but no one wants this bill on desk. So what role, or maybe I will ask it this way, how long private sector can maybe pick up this bill, and is there ways that you are also, maybe directions that you are looking for a potential supplement? Toms, maybe you.
Yeah, thank you, Kristaps. I think it is about, first of all, doing the right things in the right way. I think it is about being a strong owner to the things with a very high responsibility. What you do, how you do. It is very much about being efficient, about being effective, being able to compete. You need to invest a lot in your fundamentals of your own business to be the best.
This is a day-to-day situation.
Yes, but I think that's a good ground to start. It's not automatic in every mindset, because it is very essential to make sure that you have a solid fundamentals. when you can work on the efficiency, and this is and only then you can because you need the positive cash flow in order to then the next stage is to establish sustainable approach, long-term strategies that is also reflecting the demand, the society, what they will need from you as a business. And only in this way you can, you have to think, in our case, it is definitely the circular economy elements, such as not only producing effectively eggs, but also looking on the side products as a chicken manure, which we transform into the biogas and further into the biomethane, and we can secure the whole region with 100,000 megawatts of pure energy, which is locally produced. So, and this is about seeing your place in the value chain. It is, and this is where the money comes, in fact. When you demonstrate this readiness and strong ownership, also the investors and the banks see you as an attractive object, and they are willing to invest. And this is where I think the secret is.
So as many as these companies, very strong companies, we will have in the economy, so more and more we will have them, so more resilient the economy will be, and also the security situation as well, yeah? Definitely,
and this again, and the scale, of course, is another aspect. When we come to the self-sufficiency, you have to think big, you have to think outside your home market, and this is where you grant this resilience, both time-wise and geographically.
Yeah, I will ask this question to everyone, so you will all have chances. Yeah. So, Johnny, maybe.
No, I think who's going to pay for this? You know, I was thinking a little bit about that a couple of days ago, and I think what the analogy that you used, Minas, about the airports being an island. Now I'm talking airports here. You know, like if we, God forbid, that the Suwałki Gap is closed or it's been threatened, that we are surrounded here in the Baltics, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Our airports and our seaports will be our lifelines. That's our lifelines. And we have to make sure that we are able to handle that. And I think, in my experience, there was a lot for me to learn from Africa, actually, because they are focusing on resilience in a completely different way because they don't have the funds. They don't have the money to do what we are doing over here. And also, I think it's also very important what happens, for example, in the hurricane belt in the Caribbean. Just let me give you one example. The Hurricane Irma, that is kind of a category 5+, it completely ruined the island of St. Martin. The airport was closed, it didn't open for several weeks. And the whole GDP, the business on the island was shut down, basically. And the society was nearly shut down completely. You had everything from looting to health issues to everything that has happened. And we might face that. And that's what we need to we need to make sure that we are able to operate on a minimal operational viable level to make sure that our societies able to breathe, to keep the businesses and the economy alive, to be able to do that. And for that, we actually need to somehow fund it. And maybe we should look into something called a resilient fund. We should also look into maybe, I mean, if you look at Riga Airport, just to take one example, we are looking at, and I'm not saying that they're going to pay for it, but maybe we could look into something called a resilience fee per passenger traveling. I think it's 6-7 million passengers traveling out of Riga. Half is traveling out.
Oh, happy passengers.
Of course, happy passengers. But maybe €1, that will probably give you like 2-3 million euros, something like that. Then maybe we were able to collect something somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, resilience for an airport is about fuel. And I'm saying this in the right sequence now. Fuel, power, and people. Fuel, power, and people. You need fuel to run your generators if the electricity is gone. So you need to make sure that you have enough fuel. You need to have fuel for at least 5 days on top of what you normally are stocking up. And then you make sure that you have all the generators and that everything is working. So you are able to service whatever comes there. And then, of course, you need to have the people, the right people. And that's what I learned in Africa about how you train your people, the flexibility of people, and how they prioritize. What do we open first? What do we don't focus on at all? So there's a lot to learn, actually, from the island perspective. We are an island, and we need to handle it from a resilience point of view. And maybe we can also finance it with that in mind. But, of course, government needs to come into play, our allies needs to come into play, the European Union needs to come into play, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, also the operator of the airport.
This was a very important insight, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I already see the hands up of Ryanair saying yes, so we're going to pay it. I believe Riga has some experience with the security fee and so on. But, I mean, I don't really want to contradict. Definitely somebody should pay it from the airport perspective. I think you mentioned, and that's a key element for the infrastructure companies, efficiency. So it's another, let's say, kick from outside to be more efficient. Let's say we look into our operations, regional airport, why it should be open 24/7, maybe it should operate 12 hours. That's our saving. Energy sector, I should really give a credit to the electricity sector where we can already hedge the electricity price and you know, deal with that as well in this way. So there are still a lot of opportunities to be more efficient. And that's how the infrastructure companies may, let's say, save and balance with the additional requirements that needs to be done. But at the end, and I'm going to turn it to a different point. Sorry for that. I didn't coordinate it with you before. A taxpayer should take a bill, isn't it? Like at the end, there is we're talking about the new taxes to be introduced, defense tax or other tax. I so much miss in the public domain from the top political leadership discussion, pay your taxes, guys. I mean, don't cheat on the country. It's with every increase of the tax, with every discussion around that, with every increase of the pricing, people are going either to gray area or black area, whatever.
So it's not about filling the budget, but securing your own security.
Yeah, it's about the resilience of the country. We should learn the lessons from Ukraine. Andrei is not here, but he could tell us what's the problematic of Ukraine is, and we know it. I mean, the taxpayers, let's say, activation to be a decent citizens and pay their taxes is very much missing in the public domain.
I think this deserves applause. Baiba.
Completely agree on what you've said just now, and I think it's not just from the perspective of the individuals, it's also from the perspective of the companies and of the businesses. Of course, we are all representing large enterprises who are very transparent in this perspective, but well, we are living in a world where we are living with the grey economy. I would like to add a bit different aspect in financing here, just open another doors, yeah. I don't see, unfortunately, currently, our region as very attractive for foreign investors due to the current geopolitical situation, and we should just, this is the reality. So, and therefore, I would expect that the local investors are valued more from our governments, from our policies, perspectives, etc. Yeah? So, because that's where actually currently the funding is available for different activities. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the first question could be for what to pay. And why I'm telling is that I like the example about fuel. The question is, if we all, as representatives of our companies, would say we should be ready for 100% in such scenario. But believe me, in the wartime, maybe there will be half of the citizens, but where they will go if there will be no fuel or good transportation system. So it means that there is a need for some special fund, military fund, conflict fund, who can, before that, play the scenarios and decide in which sector we need to add that and that and that to maintain order and lifetime in the wartime. So it means that we as Riga Water will be not sound to say that we need, I don't know, 1,000 electricity generators, that we need armed excavators, that we need, etc., heavy machinery, that we need 100 reliable fuel stations. There's no need for that. So because our service will be, I don't think, dropped by more than 80% in that scenario. So there should be the played scenarios and then decided how much money for each independent task do we all need. And that should be a different money, and we can't put, for instance, in tariff to pay citizens of Riga to be prepared for high-quality service during the wartime.
Yes, I'll give the final word to you.
Okay,
last minute.
Thank you. Very quick. I mean, I agree with you about the taxes and so on. This is just a proposal. How can we finance things? Another thing that I also think is interesting to look at. That was something that they also have done in the Caribbean. They are sharing resources. So let's say that you have, and now I'm talking airports again, so it's me and Gediminas here, but you have a firefighting service. Maybe there is a fire truck that you can actually share between more than one airport, a backup, or even more than that one. Maybe there are rapid runway repair kits that can be shared across the borders. Or there could be other kinds of equipment that can be shared between the different units to actually bring down the cost per unit that needs to invest in all of this. Because what we do in airports, we are preparing for disasters that may not even happen. We buy a fire truck, and it's actually not being used for that specific purpose. So we write it off over 15 years, and then we buy a new one. So it's very also difficult to ask the local investors to invest in resilience, because what is my end? If you look at it from a business perspective, what is in it for me? I mean, yes, you are, patriot, and you want to support your community and the country and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, people also ask, okay, what's in it for me?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I will stop here. As always, and speaking about time, there is always someone who gives and someone who takes, and we were the ones who took. So thank you very much to all the panelists here. With a big round of applause. Let's give them thank you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to our online audience. And Jānis, you are welcome back on the stage here.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, synergies and critical thinking. We have a wonderful lead for this discussion. I am very, very much looking into this area because I think it's easy to grasp infrastructure, heavy machinery, equipment, food. Now comes thinking, narratives, attack on the very essence of us, where we come from in our minds. And with a wonderful round of applause, can you please help me welcome Dagny Baltiņa, our excellent host today. Not only the lead of the panel, our hostess, and over to you. Thank you, Dagny. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So welcome at the National Library. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all here also as a host of this excellent conference. And I think the tradition lies very strongly because last year we were hosting the founding event of the CIREN event. So now I'm very pleased to welcome you all here for this event. To proceed on the discussion on panel on narratives, it's my great pleasure to invite all the speakers for this panel. So there's no sequence, but I would please now call Monika. Monika Garbaičauskaite-Budriene, who is the director of the Lithuanian National Radio and Television. Pleasure meeting you. I'm also very pleased to welcome Urmo Sonvald from the Estonian Delfi editorials. Welcome, Urmo. And I think you can take a seat. Hello, Urmo. Hello. Hello. And now I'll proceed with our Latvian colleagues, Agrita Vītola from the State Fire and Rescue Service. Agrita. I would also like to proceed with Kristīne Skrīva, Director of the Latvian War Museum. And finally, I'm very pleased that with us today, also for the panel, is Arvis Zīle, Head of Crisis Management Center of Latvia. I think it's partly easy and partly quite heavy to be the final panel because I think that all expectations lies very high, also to be actually the cherry on the top. We have heard quite a lot of things discussed, and also as the head of the National Library, I also have felt many of these, not actually challenges, but questions on my table on a daily basis. It is about, which all comes back to the question of trusted institutions, of validated narratives, of our endurance, and also what was mentioned before of how actually solid our mindset is and how brave we are on certain situations to voice out our concerns, as well as to go against certain political trends just to do what our institutional, in a way, compass tells us to do. So just to start the debate, we have only 45 minutes, so I would like to start with the first question, because we heard of these narratives, and narratives are something very important that make us either stronger or weaker, or just seed into our self-doubt, or start questioning of others and questioning of ourselves. And we know from various data that one of the biggest critiques on the Baltics among ourselves actually is this some kind of a low self-perception of the preparedness, of the readiness we have. Well, actually, I think the situation within is much better. So I would like to start uncovering these aspects. And my first question would be, what do you think are the primary adverse narratives threatening our society, which we see in each one of others' institutions? So what do you think are these narratives that prevail and that we need to face and counteract? I would just start, whomever wants to start. You all have a microphone? No, you don't have behind you? Okay. Would you like Agrit to start?
Let's start. Well, as a representative of State Fire and Rescue Service, we are the coordinators of civil protection system, and the narrative that we usually hear, and that's not very pleasant, that our civil protection system is not working. Actually, system is working quite well. It has proved itself, but the components of this system, well, you can draw tables and write names of institutions, but actually people are those who make the system alive. And I must admit that we do have some lack of staff, lack of understanding of civil protection. What does it really mean? A few years ago, it was like, if I was telling the term civil protection, on the second word, people already were sleeping because they didn't understand what it means. Now we somehow start to understand it. Civil protection now is ubiquitous. It's even too much of this, but actually this is our daily life, and in
sense of civil protection, there are some circumstances that make this everyday life more difficult or so on. But to tell that system is not working, it's not correct. But still we have a lot of things to do and to make this system alive and to be creative. As we know, only God is perfect, but we are made by God, not perfect, so to be creative. And civil protection system also allows this creativity, and we shouldn't be afraid to take advantage of making it better and involve it and develop it. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much. I think it was very important to voice out loud, actually, that I think we need to once again, and it's actually a funny situation, the war was in the situation to restate that actually you can trust in us, and we have very strong civil security institutions in Latvia that we can trust upon. Who wants to proceed? Urmo, I see you having a microphone.
Thank you, and thank you for sun. First time in Baltic states I can see sun.
Well, that's especially for this panel.
But my answer is a little bit different. I'm from Delfi Media, which is the largest media group in Estonia, and we have portal and many newspapers and magazines. And in the last days of 2021 and the first weeks of 2022, we got some memos from our authorities. And the memos was about what Russia might do in Ukraine and what Russia might do with the Baltic states and Poland. And those memos was devastating. And we had a moment to think, will we share those memos with our colleagues or not? Especially with young ones, I mean 23, 24, until 30. And we made decision that we will share those memos, which are like full of different Russian narratives. And we shared documents with our colleagues. And I saw the people how the computer stops. And so basically the first idea was, now I should go to the harbor and to Helsinki, because from Tallinn to Helsinki is quite close. And there was like many tens of young journalists who wasn't able to work many weeks because they saw what might happen. And it was devastating reading, and it helped us because some months later, when the war started in Ukraine, it was much easier to work because they knew something about already. Because the narratives might kill the journalist mental issues. So quite a mental issue. But I was very sorry what I shared those memos, but when full-scale war started, I was happy what I did it. Because my colleagues, young ones especially, saw the Russian narratives. Because older ones, as I am, we knew Russian narratives, because the narratives have been the same like during last 30 years, 34 years. But the young person, young journalist who just starting their personal life, they are like thinking about family, about to home, to go to the travel, their life stopped.
I think it's a great, what you mention is, the question is to us, all of us who are not as young, but why have we shamed away of telling these stories earlier and these narratives and sharing them better before? But for that, I would like to ask Christine now to proceed on the narratives about Latvian War Museum, because I think it's also about upkeeping this awareness of these narratives so they don't really come as the thunder.
Putting a pressure on LRT. So to what I respond, that during this geopolitical situation, it is extremely bad idea to show mistrust, to launch some unnecessary audits, investigations, and put pressure on public service media, because it is very important that the general audience would trust in media, and especially during our times when the consumption of media have changed so much, and people learn news from TikTok. And other social media platforms. So it is now extremely important for the governance to invest into media literacy, to foster the trust in in the main media, because we see very well when something is happening. Now, take this drone tonight, so the news ratings will go up immediately of LRT, because they know that this is a trustful source, and when something is happening, they're switching on and tuning in and to learn the news. Also, well, of course, there is a part of society that that mistrust not only media, not only public service media, but also other institutions, and the surveys show it very clearly that this part of population which has mistrust in public service media also usually mistrust the the other mainstream media and the parliament, the government, and the other institutions. So, of course, it's needed to work with this to address this as well. Speaking about narratives, so I just want to add up to what has been said, that Russians are very good in using the local problems as well. They're using local problems and spreading this mistrust. So their aim is, I think, general aim is that the people get lost, not without any points to lean themselves on, to realize what is wrong, what is right. And of course, every society have problems, and this is normal. But what we see, we are following, by the way, our journalists are following this, as we call it, parallel world, these narratives in YouTube, in Facebook, or elsewhere, what is being spread. So the majority is apart from all these vague narratives, vain narratives about peace needed, and about why we should worry about Russia and the war so much. Apart from this, in general, this is addressing of local problems and turning them around and so on.
I add to the Monica what the fake narrative from Russia grows from social media. And the most crucial thing to Europe, to the Western world, is what media literature should be in the schools. It should be everywhere in the schools, because we at least in Estonia, we can show a generation who don't understand what means real media and what is social media, what are the differences, same pictures, same headlines, what the differences, and we should start from schools. And I know what the Estonian government and Finnish government are making some cooperation, and not from the 9th grade. It's much earlier we should teach our sons and daughters what is difference in social media and real media. Because Russia, and okay, we are talking basically here today about Russia's influences, and Russia is using social media, and they have destroyed some elections in Europe, as you know, and there will be local elections in Estonia after 5 weeks, and we can see what the Russian trying to push some eastern part of Estonia already with fake news. And they, as Monica mentioned, they are very good because they have extremely big resources how to push and how to make fake news and how to lie and how to provocate the Western world. And Estonia, Latvia, and Estonia are not naive countries. But in Western world, there are enough naive countries who still cannot believe what somebody at a government position is to lie. Still, we know exactly what the Russians' position have been like from 1991 or even from 1917 to lie. But even in Scandinavia, and I'm reading every day Scandinavian news portals because I can read Finnish, I can understand, but during last years, the Scandinavian journalists understand, Jesus, Russia is lying. How can be the official position?
On media.
Yeah, for media, yeah. And that's why we should teach our younger generation to make differences what is social media and what is real media.
Okay, very quickly, I know that there is one panelist who didn't speak yet, but in general, what Urmo has just explained also, these fake news are so relatively easy to spread, and counter and deconstruct these fake news takes a lot of time. So in general, what we should do is we should raise the awareness of society in general and the resilience, because you cannot run after every fake news and deconstruct it, because it takes a lot of resources, and not necessarily everybody believes in this deconstruction. So, so the society itself has to have immunity, like a healthy attitude towards themselves, towards the processes of society, and the media has to work on it as well.
Just for the historical perspective, because Estonia and Latvia is sharing some great anniversary this year, so there are 500 years since the first books in Latvian and Estonian were printed. This is a great, actually, anniversary, but also it's an illustration, and later on Lithuanian first books comes. But because we had the written and printed languages and books in those languages, it was the comparative advantage against the Russification over the previous centuries. So we're not even talking about the 20th century history. We're looking much, much deeper into the history. And if we look on the reasons of our resilience, it has been the ability to read and sustain our reading in our own languages. So just also add up to your preparedness and children preparedness actually is to think of a national reading strategy, which would also entail aspects of critical thinking. And we know that it is an effort one needs to learn. It's an effort one needs to invest, both in education but also individually, and it needs to be enforced, especially in our communities. And we see these social media aspects, which are very oral kind of messages, and they do start to overwhelm these written messages, which media mainly has relied upon. So we need to strengthen actually the skills to have this resilience mindset, and this skill is reading. It is as that basic, and actually that will also entail that we'll have access to all the memory we might need to awareness and comprehend what is being told. But I wanted to now give the floor to Arvis, but not anymore on narratives, because I think that's, but you can please go on with that. But my actually question was, as we heard or hear, and as we know that Russian also propaganda is very much questioning, as you rightly mentioned, our actual preparedness. Now we have established a crisis management center. Everybody starts to act. Everybody starts to think what their contribution towards preparedness, awareness, to give trusted narratives or anything. How not to ridicule the whole thing of risk preparedness, and how actually to bring out any kind of organized acts by government institutions in this chaos of counter narratives, of questioning of the sensibility of our ability to react. And I think a lot of people now look upon you as a crisis management center, and that how to actually bring all these synergies together. How do you see that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. First of all, yeah, I very like that idea that media literacy should be already provided and taught in schools at possibly youngest age, as soon as the children get their first smartphone or other smart thing, and they start to watch the videos. Even if they don't read yet, they watch the videos, they consume the information, they absorb something. And that's the proper time when to start educate them about the possibilities of technologies and how to perceive the information. So somewhere on the social media or in their tablets or phones. So that's the very good and valid point. Thanks for that. All of us have to think about that, how to provide that media literacy. Yeah, regarding the question, the newly established Crisis Management Center in Latvia, newly established, we are taking experiences from our neighbors in Estonia and Lithuania, and our structure is prepared also to include communication specialists in it. So that will be the task for them to monitor the situation together with the other specialists in other sectors, in other institutions, to monitor disinformation flow, and together with other sectors prepare guidances and the plan how to counter it. So that will be one united plan or direction to the all sectoral specialists to counter disinformation in one manner, in one pace, let's say that.
I think it's also very wise what you are saying, because I think one of the counter narratives by Russian propaganda is exactly that you are the weak state, which I think one of you mentioned, that you can't do this, it's not going to make. And I think it is very important when you say, no, we actually can. It's happening. And I think it's a very, very also strong message from all of us that we are trusted institutions and our narratives are validated. And when we say something, it is meaningful. But to build on these synergies and ways how actually the cooperation has already functioned, Agrit, I know that firemen and fire rescue services have been greatly involved, and you are always being, you have been, I would say, the stakeholder everybody has primarily turned to for synergies, because that's in a way the first in a way instance to look upon.
Mm-hmm. That is a way how we are building trust day by day, every day. We would like to be present and to work with all institutions. It doesn't matter what kind of institution it is, also work with society as much as possible as it is, and work with municipalities. But we must understand that those institutions and society, it's not like a like a brick or a bunch of something. There are a lot of different varieties, a lot of different people, a lot of different needs, and probably we can't reach everybody by that, but actually it's building trust and finding those necessary points where to work together, where to communicate together. For example, this year I experienced a very wonderful project, READY. That was meant for safeguarding cultural heritage. I applied for this project as a State Fire and Rescue Service person. I didn't even think that I will be taken in this course and will be participated. But the result of this course is that practical activities were taken here in Latvia and exercises, and I started to work together with institutions, National Library colleagues, colleagues from museums, and I understand and I see their needs, what they need from us, how to help, how to build their resilience, how to build their preparedness, and this thing to be involved in all different areas, in all different auditoriums, it's very important, because then you feel the real life and then you understand what's really is necessary. And it means also about talking to people. If we are practicing or doing anything, usually if we speak about evacuation, then you look at those people that some group of evacuees and that's it, but actually they are the resource and you can work with them and do whatever and involve them in organizing this place where they should stay or organize other help systems. And well, it takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and hopefully with new institutions we will do it better.
I think it's great what you are saying, because it is exactly seeing that we are the source and we can be the ones that, in a way, that was mentioned, I think, in the first panel by Robert from Washington, saying that we have to fight the inertia, something that we have been living into, and we have to just take up the idea, no, it's important for us to have our own independent countries, to have democracy in our countries, and it all messages it out. So my question to the next is, just to build on that, are there any other untapped synergies, also maybe with media, and between media and state institutions, that can build societal resilience? What do you see, what else can we do to build this? And really, really to block as a front line and say, no, we are united. That's not true what Russia says about it. We believe in our countries, we stay strong, we are very well off, and we are well off if we look historically.
There are a lot of ways, and LRT, for example, is cooperating also with various NGOs on that, not only with public institutions, museums and memory institutions, as was mentioned. Of course, the army and their stratcoms about communication and so on, but also with NGOs. For example, one of the big plans that we have for upcoming season is to have a big project with the Red Cross to help to teach people on how to prepare themselves for difficult situations. and that we have a plan, and we really worked on together on that plan. And Red Cross came to us with the idea that they should have a program, and we thought that we should turn it into something bigger. And so we will have a cooperation on that. And Gediminas, who was on the previous panel, is a member of the board and also participated in that discussions. Also, one of the other example might be like our cooperation with Scout organizations, who are, I'm Scout myself, Scout girl, but they know how to survive in woods and how to teach the others how to spend, you know, night or two in the woods if you have no other choice. These are a few examples, and some, you know, there are a lot of other examples about cooperating with media and big media organizations like Deutsche Welle, teaching region journalists from Ukraine also to counter fake news, cooperate on conferences on investigative journalism. It all adds up to the more healthy and better society and better content. So that's, yeah, I could share these examples.
In our cases, Estonian government and authorities understands importance of media. And when war started in 2022, I got a phone call from the Prime Minister office. Urmo, how much you need money to run with more people our Russian version? First time during 30 years, government asked how much you need money. I didn't what to answer. I said 300,000. And our biggest competitor asked twice more. And they got twice more as well. But we are talking about synergy here. But then synergy is like not between companies or ministries or authorities. The synergy is between people. Mm-hmm. And my main question is, and I have asked from the Swedbank and from our hospitals and from our telco leaders, how many from your companies, are the people ready to face the war? Are they really ready? That's the question what I'm asking. We have like 400, let's say 200 journalists in Delfi Media. Half of them are ladies, half of them men. And student government have asked from us, if something really happens, how many people in your office, in your company, are ready to work? How many people are ready to work if there are planes, Shaheds, or there's a wartime? I don't know the answer. It's quite easy to talk about in couch, drinking the hot coffee, and like it's quite easy to talk about. But if the situation is, and for me, the synergy is not to talk with government or talk with like museums or like whatever organization. For me, synergy, how many people are ready to work if something happens. And I don't know the real answer. And nobody knows the real answer. And that's, I think, what's the main question, not for Estonians, Lithuanians, or Latvians, it's the main question for Europeans. How much they're mentally ready to face Russian power, not in portals or newspapers, but in real life.
I think it really, really comes, I will give you Monica, but I also want Arvis on this, just to build on, I think it is about this psychological self-perception of us and mental self-perception of the readiness. Monica, what do you think? But I would like also Arvis to follow up on this psychological aspects.
Yes, and here media can also do all kind of things, not only inform in a traditional way of news, providing news. One of the examples that I can give to you is that we already for third year, we have been doing this Radarum campaign. I don't know if you heard of it, but we are collecting money to buy different equipment for Ukraine. And so it was amazing, unprecedented campaign. And in first year, we collected 15 million euros in 1 month, which was incredible amount for a small country. And then we repeated, and other media also added up to this. And people felt so united, just like at the beginning of the independence, from children to old people and businesses, everybody was calling, was donating, and then we repeated it. Of course, you know, when the war goes on, there are some fatigue, and it's normal that you cannot repeat it, all this success of first year. But anyway, what I'm trying to tell is that the media can also play other roles as uniting the nation, proving that they are very needed, that they can help, and then somehow contribute to this war of Ukraine, who are fighting for us as well. So it's very, you know, it's a very good feeling. It's a very good feeling for people, and so that they are not helpless. They contribute. They add up to it.
Just also to add on that, so I think it's also important that every institution in a crisis situation had its litmus moment into 2022 February, where they all could test what would their spontaneous response be, and whether they would start panicking and acting in all the directions, or they would really see what is my role in this situation to highlight. So the National Library, for example, jumped immediately into supporting cultural heritage safeguarding materials for Ukraine, because that's in a way our mandate, that's our understanding. We also jumped into regarding the digital heritage preservation. So we immediately saw where we could actually contribute and not instigate more panic or more chaos, but where we can actually be of help. And I think it's also what you ask, so how mentally prepared we are actually to stick to our mandate instead of start teaching others what their roles should be. Quickly, and then I need Arvis and Christine.
Monica described like great examples how people can help Ukraine, and we had a vice versa example. Maybe somebody who have read about Slava Ukraini organization in Estonia. They gathered money, food, everything, and like after 1 year there was a scandal because a lady who got the medal from president, he was a person of the year, like a real queen in our society, got in the elections like enough votes, and then happened what she probably steal some money. And we can see statistics how much people are donating to help Ukraine, and it went up, and when scandal came out, people don't want to donate and help Ukraine with donation anymore.
Well, it happens.
But I think, let me give Arvis, but I think this is about exactly this trust in institutions, and I think we need to continue working and not give up on working on this. But Arvis, how do you think of this psychological readiness and mental?
Yeah, about the psychological resilience and readiness, and previously mentioned thing about how many people will be ready to continue to work in the critical infrastructure, in the critical service provision. After the first massive drone attack, after the rocket attack on the country, of course, there will be shock. Nothing will be like up to that. There will be change. People will be scared. Some of the people, I don't know what the percentage, will not come back to the work, will think about how to escape, how to save their families, and how to stay safe. But of course, some critical services will not be provided after the first shock because of those people. They will not be at their working spaces anymore. That's why we call that 72-hour bag. Each individual have to prepare that bag. Those are critical things which will help you survive those first 72 hours or 3 days. And that will also build up your psychological preparedness. You will understand you have something, you can survive, you don't rely only on provided services. You can survive on your own. And by that we are building our common psychological, no, I will not say that anymore. So we are building up our resilience and preparedness for the crisis. Simple, small things which helps us to build us that resilience.
I think I want to ask Christine, because I think it is about the persistent work that happens now as well as will possibly continue as the crisis hits. So what would be your reflection on that?
Consistency is a key, of course. But if we talk about this psychological resilience, it's something what we cannot make, let's say, artificial. It starts in families, it starts with the educational system, and again, I will talk from the perspective of the museums and memory institutions. For us, in our work, it's very important, this education and educational work, and this is how we communicate. And it's no use to preserve history and preserve heritage if you don't do research and if you don't communicate and if you don't educate society with that. And in our work, in not just Latvian War Museum, but in all museums and also libraries, what is important is this educational programs. And through educational programs, and we have several also, which promotes critical thinking. Critical thinking is a key for the resilient societies. And I think we all know that the biggest threat can come within the state. We can have most modern weapons, most modern defense system. What history shows, what situation Ukraine shows, the biggest threat can come within society. So this is why it's so important to have this resilient societies, critical thinking societies. And we cannot do it, museums and memory institutions alone. We need this cooperation. We need this cooperation in preserving our heritage, because without heritage there won't be memory. If there won't be this common memory, there won't be identity. And if we are losing our identity, if we are losing our memory, we are questioning our statehood as it is. So this is why it's very important, this cooperation, which was mentioned before. I think it's also the key for this resilient societies.
I really like your reflection on this, because I think it's also part of the mentality that there are certain values, certain statements, certain, I would say, missions that we don't ask permission to endure and persist upon. And that is partly work in our memory on the historical knowledge. And we know we are both historians and we, in a way, have it ingrained into us. But I think it's also sometimes that we don't wait for us to be validated. And I think this is a lot of our institutions, and I also look on the firefighting services, we just do the thing because we know that's what is important, and we show up. But just to conclude, because I think we're running out of time, we have like 4 minutes left according to my watch. So what do you think, what would be both the messages to our listeners, but also to yourselves and among ourselves as a takeaways or future priority actions that would in a way counteract this, what was mentioned before, those subtle attacks or this cunningness of also all the approaches to destabilize the situation, and also for ourselves not to give up but to endure this moment, because as we know also in youth camps there are moments which just need to be endured, also for survival camps, from scouts and guides. There are moments you just need to endure and then it just goes up again. So what are your takeaways and I would maybe start with Agrita, and both takeaway as well as message for our listeners?
Well, I would like to start probably with a message. We all are a part of civil protection system. It doesn't mean that me as a citizen, I'm sitting here, I'm not a part, I'm really a part of it. Also, we need to learn that we should care about others as much as we care about ourselves. It's very difficult to digest, but, rephrase this. I would say, treat others like you would like to treat yourself, because those stressful situations, they will show a lot of different, not pleasant things that can arise in society. But actually, this resilience builds during the time when we are going through those crises, and then at the end, then we can think rebuilding ourselves, and then we can think that we are a resilient society. But it takes a lot of time, a lot of courage, and it's we all are frightened, we all are scared. Firefighter who is going inside the burning building, he's also frightened, but he knows his mission. He needs to fight for the person, he needs to rescue a person who is inside. Well, that's how we also should face those problems. There is a problem, it's not pleasant, it's not comfortable, but face it and you will get out of this situation resilient. Thank you.
Thank you. Who goes next? Go, please, Monica.
So I think, just as you mentioned, keep calm and carry on. It's very important, no panic. Another thing is just we need to get prepared, you know, from every, I don't know, senior person, child. My mother, for example, she's very conscious. She's like 67, but she has got her bag. She has bought all the things, she packed up. And what people say about it is that they make them more calm, you know, more stable. So I think this is very important, and you know, any expert would say you that enemy, when he knows that the society is prepared, this is less likely that he will enter. So, you know, the better we are prepared, the less likely somebody wants to challenge us. So we stood for so many ages, and we will stand again and protect Western values, not only our nationality, but also Western values, period.
Thank you.
Yeah, I started our day today with some survey which showed that 85% of people are not done any exercises before, like if something happened. So that is my answer. For example, Delfi Media, we made small book for everybody, small 16 pages, what we are doing as a company if something happened. I think what every family, every organization, everybody should go through those things, and not only as a talking, but in real life as well. Because if we are mentally ready if something happened, it helps us if something, like we should face something bad, because our neighbor will stay. And I'm not talking about Finland or Latvia, Lithuania, I'm talking about Russia. And we should be prepared. We should prepare, not just talking and making conferences and so on. We should really prepare if something happens. It's not about you.
Thank you. Now it's Christine and Arvidsson. Time's up.
I think we need more stronger cooperation between institutions, between history institutions, cultural institutions, defense institutions. But but I think we should be on the same page and work side by side to have this more resilient societies. We must understand our role in our defense system, not just as institutions, but as human beings. And I think when we will understand this responsibility we have toward our country, toward our society, we as experts, we as institutions, we will become more resilient, and so also our society. And I think it's also important. And of course, join National Guard perhaps, or be active. Be active. We must be active. It's not the time to sit and think what others will do, and it's not time to think what could we do. We must act. This is a time for the action. I think it's the main message what I would like to bring. Thank you.
Thank you. Arvis.
Yes, and my key takeaway will be the children literacy, media literacy as early as possible. And my message to the society will be prepare yourself individually. Prepare. Check the emergency application. If it is up to date, read the official brochures from the government, how to conduct in the crisis situations, and prepare your 72-hour bag. By your preparation, by your individual preparation, you build up the common preparation. Neighbors are watching you, and they will do the same, learn from you.
Thank you very much to all the panelists and to CIREN for hosting this great panel. It was great having you all here. Thank you for devoted time, ideas, and messages. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's not over just yet. You can stay in your seats. for a while before I handshake with everyone. On the concluding remarks, I have to say, for those people, for those select few up here at the summit of the National Library, we have a good opportunity to go few floors down to the 8th floor reading room, where some of our distinguished experts have prepared a manual for enterprises how to act in a crisis or in a wartime. So unfortunately, this is a little bit limited audience, but after this event, it will be also released and published in due time. For the rest of us, I have heard, just to conclude the whole event, I will use the authority of the moderator and the organizer, and to say also a few concluding remarks. I heard a couple of things from this event and also from this panel. One of the things will be that we need to prepare, but it was lingering in the air, but I think we have to reframe a discussion a little bit. We have to be prepared to work, to contribute, rather than run away. We feel like running away, but probably we have to reframe our mindset. Just as Urmo brought it up, it really resonated with me strongly. As Christina said, we actually have to be ready for practical activity. I think we are, and as I said also in the beginning, we are very good at strategizing here, but the hard data is really sobering. We are not doing exercises. I'm very thankful to the people right in this room, some of them in the panel, who will be tomorrow out in the trenches, including myself. We will be doing preparations as part of the NAMES nationwide exercise. But it's not only those people who sit in the trenches, do their military drills. It's all of us here who should reframe. We will need to work, not run away. Because the companies, as we heard in the panel too, as Krišjānis mentioned, Toms mentioned, Johnny mentioned, we need people to basically to produce GDP. That GDP buys us guns, buys us ammunition. That GDP buys us other stuff that we need during the crisis. And this is a real thing, and all of us can do that, just like the volunteers also contributed to today's event. One of the volunteers to this event is the president. A few other volunteers are our family members. So if they can do it, we all can do it. And on that note, on that can-do attitude note, we can conclude the broadcast part of this event. We can, do more, practice things right now, right today. But those who want a little bit more guidance, welcome to the 8th floor and welcome back. What do you think? When do we meet next time? It's not when drones fly in. Last year the drones were flying in. This year the drones are flying in. So what do you think? It was 10th September last year, 10th September this year. When do we meet for the next event? 10th September 2026. Everybody welcome, and we will check on the progress. So that's why we are an NGO. We can do that. So a very warm round of applause to everybody who contributed. Thank you, thank you, thank you.